Well, thank you. Where are you located at?
I'm from India.
Okay. Okay. Where?
India from South India.
You don't have like a state or a country, I mean, or a city you're in? You're in
My
all of India. You're a big guy.
yeah. My state name is Telangana.
Yeah, okay.
It's a
Okay.
newly formed state.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this has been hard, so I'm glad we finally got in contact with each other. What time is it there right now?
It's 7:12 p.m. It's
Okay.
evening.
Okay. So, do you have some time to get this done?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's yeah. It's 15 to 20 minutes. I hope you have 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, that'll be fine. No problem.
Thank you
And
so much, sir.
thank you for doing this. Thank you for allowing me to get a voice.
It's my pleasure, sir. So I thought to introduce you to my audience.
Sure.
So can you please introduce yourself to my audience and the world who watches this video?
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you said you. Okay. So, my name is Mark Sneed. I am a writer, and a blogger and a podcaster. I try to do many things. I was a teacher. I used to play American football. I After playing American football, I played on the national rugby team. So I think people in India understand rugby better than they understand American football. And yeah, I'm originally from Chicago, and got my education at the University of California in Berkeley, and stayed in California for about, I don't know, 20 years or so, 25 years. And then recently I have moved here to Florida, and I've been writing since. And as I think I told you, I've written 3 books, and in the process of trying to write more, and just trying to uh, I want to say be a voice of black male writers, because I see that that is not a large and present kind of situation. Hope that helps and give you some understanding of who I am.
So yes, you said a lot of things about yourself.
Yes.
So you was into rugby, football, American football, which are sports, and you went to university and you did your studies, and you are a
Mhm.
writer and you wrote 3 books, and you are a podcaster.
Right. And a blogger, and I'm a cyclist too. A bicyclist. I never been to India, but I know that that they don't they cycle a lot there, but don't bicycle a lot very much there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I try to stay informed.
Okay. So, sir, one small request. Can you please not shake your camera?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay.
Yeah, because yeah, the
I got
people
you. I
will.
got you.
Yeah. So we'll talk about your books first, then we'll go.
Sure. So
When you started writing,
mhm.
when you
So
started writing.
when did I start writing?
Yeah.
Well, I've been a writer most of my life. I have an English major, and and that's what I got in college. But prior to that, I mean, I've always been really good at writing and writing stories, and um, when I'm trying to think exactly when I started to write professionally. And when I was in college, I I used to listen to a lot of music, and um, my college newspaper asked me to review some not movie, review some music. And so that's kind of where I started writing, because I got paid for it. And then I decided to write for music magazines. So I wrote for music magazines, met a lot of like celebrities, interviewed a bunch of celebrities. Um, and it kind of been it was a logical step once I stepped away from that to start to write. And so my first book is Teddy D in the World of Shadows, which is a kind of hard-boiled uh, look at a anti-hero who his life is already, he's about to die, but he is a bad guy, but he wants to do something good before he dies, if that makes any sense. And he is trying to go out on his own terms as opposed to allowing people to uh, kill him and end his life as a bad guy. And um, that was my first book. It sold about, I want to say about 400. Well, it's still going, but it sold about 400 or 500 books, and that was self-published. And so that's really kind of, to me, was a good measurement of what I could do. And then my second book was a YA book, a young adult book called Bully Nation. And that's kind of, I guess it's dystopian. So it's set in the future, and it's with a more black oriented uh, world, because many of the whites, it's dystopian. So the world has kind of ended, and as the world was ending, white people said we're out. So they jumped in rockets and flew away from the world as the world was being destroyed, and only the blacks and minorities remained because they didn't. The whites chose not to, include them in that trip away from the destruction. And so it's really the how people remain on Earth after the whites have left. And my most recent book is called Nothing Simple or Easy, which is another YA. Well, it's not really a YA book. It's a romance book, which is, I kind of like it because it's romance. And it made me laugh because, I mean, sometimes as a writer, I read books. So sometimes as a writer, as I was writing it, I stopped when the main character kissed the girl he was after. And I was like, oh my God, they just kissed. You get excited because you can see the process coming into play. And it was just really wonderful. So I like it. And it's one of my lighter books, and it's probably one of my more enjoyable books in the simplicity of it, because it's just a guy who falls in love with a girl from the wrong side of the town, and him trying to just have a real love affair while all the madness is going on in life. If that makes Those are my three books.
So tell me about cycling.
So I've been always been very competitive. So as I said, I in college I played football for the University of California, and when I left football, I played rugby for the University of California as well, and that got me to, we were national champions for the 2 or 3 years that I was there. So when I got older and my body started to break down, and I didn't want to continue to play rugby because rugby is brutal, as you probably know. It's a brutal sport. And I was like, well, I'm not going to be able to run as fast as I want, and I'm not going to be able to take all the punishment from rugby. And I thought to myself, what should I do then? Because I always want to be active. And I thought to myself, well, I'd play basketball, but basketball is hard on your knees. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And running I'd been doing, and I was like, running is hard on my knees. And so a friend of mine said, well, if your knees hurt, why don't you bicycle? And I was like, okay. And then I got bored almost a month after I got the bike, and I was like, this is kind of boring because all I'm doing is riding. And a friend of mine said, they do have races. And I was like, what? And that's when I got excited because, again, long as I'm competing, I feel like I'm doing something. And so I've been a competitive cyclist for, I don't know, what, 5 6 years. And um, when I was in California, we raced all the time. Um, But unfortunately, well, I don't want to say unfortunately, it's in California it's very hard because there's a lot of hills in California. You can't tell, but I'm a kind of big guy. I'm 200 pounds, and 200 pounds on a bike is not cool. I think to win races you have to be like, I don't think it's really true, but generally you see most people are like 160 pounds or lighter who are really racing, and I'm like, so I'm never going to win, but I'm always in the races, so that's always fun.
So what is your full-time job?
Say again.
What is your full-time job?
So I recently, well, I've been a teacher most of my life, and I recently stopped teaching in California to move here to Florida, and so my full time job is writing. So trying to get a foothold in and become a, I don't know, the next. I don't want to be Harry Potter. I guess I want to be the next Ralph Ellison, or um, maybe James Baldwin. So,
So what was the subject that you taught?
well, as I told you, my degree is in English. So, surprise, I was an English teacher, and so yeah, and so I taught actually all levels, all the way from, well, I haven't taught college. I taught junior college. I don't know what that is in India, but it's not university. I taught the one that's below university. So, and I've taught high school and junior high and middle school. Only didn't do like grade school stuff. I couldn't do that. I just can't deal with the little kids.
So when did you start podcast and what is it about?
uh, my podcast is actually a podcast with my best friend from Chicago, and it's called Two Black Critics. And the idea was that I've always loved movies. I love movies, and but well, actually, I say and but I want to make sure this makes sense. And my best friend was in the industry. He used to he's a video salesman, and so obviously when video disappeared, he became like he knew I forget the guy's names because he knows everybody, but the guy who started Netflix, he worked with that guy, and so he has all this behind the scenes stuff, and like for me. I'm just the guy who goes to the movie theater, sits and eats popcorn and watches the movie. And if I hate the movie, I'll tell you why I hate the movie. Well, my friend will tell me why the movie sucked and like the reason because of the cost and why they didn't get the best director and all that kind of stuff. Which is to me, it's really an interesting part. And so we kind of I juxtapose him to me because I'm just the simple guy who wants to be entertained when I go see a movie, and he's the guy who can tell you about the budget, who the director was, why he didn't get the job, why they cheaped out on the special effects and stuff. And I'm like, wow, because and like most people, like, well, I don't want to say most people, like for me, I'm always surprised that many of these movies are kind of like budget items. They don't really care about the movie, the story, because once they like the story, but then it's like, we're not going to pay this director or this actor because that costs more money. So they're going to pick someone a little bit lower. And I'm like, that's how they make the decisions. And so that's how we did Two Black Critics. And so it's informative. It's fun. We've been doing it for about a year, and it is still one of my favorite things because I get to talk with my friend who has completely different ideas on the same exact thing we're talking about. So, like, if we're talking about, I'll give a good example. We recently saw the little things with Denzel Washington, Jared Leto, and Ram Malik, and I thought the movie was okay, and he thought it was great. And I was like, it's just okay. And he goes, no, because they're gonna make all this money because of Denzel these names. And I was like, but that's not what the movie was about. He goes, well, that doesn't matter. It's about the money for him. And I was, and because that's what the industry is about for him is money. And to me, I'm like, well, if I'm not entertained, I don't really get down for it. And he's all like, it doesn't matter. That's how you'll see another movie. They'll do another of the little things if it makes enough money. So I hope that explains the differences.
So why blogging, and when you started blogging?
Well, I blog because I have and this is kind of crazy. This is me. I have like these gremlins in my head. I like if I tell you, like you already probably know, when you tell me to you're ready, I'm ready too. And so it's really hard for me. So like I'm a guy that if you say I need you to count from 1 to 100, I don't do 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 15. I count all the way, all the numbers, right? And so in my head, I always kind of felt that I needed to know what I did because people ask me like really stupid questions, like a lot. And then to me, at least like they ask me like, "What did you eat for dinner?" And I'm like, why? I mean, it doesn't matter. But in my blog, I felt that I could keep a track of what I did the day before, and know what was going on. So then when people, and it was just for me, it was just like, what was I doing? And so because people ask me questions, and I'm like, it's really that stuff really isn't that important to me. It's important in the moment, but it's not that important to me, as I go on. And people ask me questions that are always kind of like to me weird because again, I'm always moving forward. I'm not always looking backwards, if that makes any sense. And that's kind of what my blog is about. It's about me. And when in America, cycling, USA cycling I used to be able to race. I can't race right now because of COVID. And so as a result, I don't race. All I do is ride my bike right now, which is kind of like I told you earlier. That's kind of boring to me because if there's no competition, I'm like, this is kind of like, yeah, it's just training. So I'm like, that's kind of annoying. But the blog is to help me stay focused, I guess, if that and it gives like insight because I'm also a book reviewer, so I review a lot of books. I read a lot of books and review them, so people like to read that and see what I'm, what books I'm reading.
So why all these things in your life?
Say again, why am I doing all these things? Well, I mean, it's a life, right? I mean, shouldn't I be doing something? What do you say I be doing? I should just be sitting at the house and counting all the pens I owned or something. I don't know. I mean, to me, it it just it's not like I don't ever think of it as things I'm doing. It's just what I do. And if I ever felt overwhelmed, I wouldn't do them, if that makes sense. Because like to me, I should enjoy what I'm doing. And so I'm enjoying it. I really like to write. I've always loved to read. Uh, I realize that I have to be active because um, being I don't think I've played a lot of sports all my life. So I've been coached and trained and all that. So it's really hard for me not to um, do something. And so to me, as long as it's not like again, like it's not overwhelming, then I don't feel bad about it. When I don't like to do it, then I don't want to do it anymore. Like, oh, I forgot to say that one of the things I do enjoy in India, I know they do this because I watch a lot of it. I love to play chess. Now, chess is one of my favorite things to do, and so I always thought to myself, if I had nothing to do, I'd play chess I don't know if you ever played competitive chess. Oh my God, my heart palpitates, man. It feels like I'm in a race because you're like, okay, the next move you could win or lose, and I'm like, oh my God, and that to me is it's wonderful stuff. I like that kind of uh, anticipation and anxiety that is driven from like competition.
I'm a sportsman too. I'm a cricketer. I played for state and national
Oh, cool.
tournaments.
Uh huh.
Uh, so I
Very
connected with
cool.
you when you said that you rugby and you was into American football.
Hmm.
So most of your life you spent in sports.
Yeah. Yeah, I was and it's kind of crazy. I have to tell you, I was when I played rugby, I learned about cricket because I didn't even know what cricket was like, and um, I was on the national sevens team for a minute, and they um, they had some guys from India, I guess, and they were talking about cricket, and I was like, I don't know what that is. And so they were really surprised. Like here in America, I came from football, right? So American football, and so when I played rugby, I didn't even know the rules of rugby. So and they were like, how do you not know the rules? I was like, because they didn't say I needed them, so I didn't really care to learn them. And then somehow they were trying to explain to me about cricket, and I was like, yeah, it's too complicated because all I really like the idea is I love the idea of throwing that ball and catching it. But after that, I mean, the whole rules and ideas of all the, what I'm talking about, all the intricacies of it, it gets complicated. And I'm like, well, I would rather be doing the part that's just the fun part. Again, the active part, and I think cricket is really a fascinating sport. I mean, obviously, but it's sometimes it's like baseball to a certain extent, American baseball, because there are moments when it's just really the pitcher and the batter, and and the outfielders and the fielders are just waiting. But that's the wonderful part, right? But it's also boring if you're just a spectator. So
So you said that you represented for your university. I also played for. I represented my college, and I was a captain for my engineering college.
oh,
Uh,
nice.
yeah. So can you tell more about it? How was you playing for your university team?
Well, I mean, I'm 100 million years old now compared to when I was in college, and so um, I think that well, I'm going to back up because I had to think about how what your question is. I get the question, but I have to kind of think about it. So when I was playing football for a college it's the Pac-12, and UC Berkeley has always been seen as more of a research school. So they didn't really see athletics as a big deal. And so when I got in, I just playing football was great, and I enjoyed it. And I think that again, my old whole idea is if you enjoy being active and you enjoy something, you'll do your best at it. But if you don't enjoy it, it becomes really like a job, and then it becomes no longer fun. And that's kind of how it was for me. And so I enjoyed it, but then I didn't understand when I got to college because I don't know if you get paid to play cricket. In college, in my college, I got paid. I got a scholarship. I got scholarships to go to the university and play there. And soon as I had to get a scholarship, everything changed. It went from fun to a business, and and again, like I said earlier, it became not as fun. And I was like, well, why am I doing it if I'm not having fun, right? And but I enjoyed the practices, I enjoyed the games. I just didn't like the business side of it, where um, I mean, my freshman year, I had to spend almost the whole year just getting bigger because in college I was fast, but I wasn't big, physically big, and so they wanted me to put on like 20 extra pounds of muscle, and that was hard because they wanted me in a weight room, and I was like, what? And I was like, I never lifted weights when I was in high school, and so when I went to college, they were like, you need to lift weights, and I was like, really? This sounds like a job suddenly, and because they gave me a scholarship, I suddenly had to start lifting weights, and that was a little, I don't know, daunting for me because I was like, and I also wanted, I also ran track in high school and thought when I got to college, I was going to be allowed to run track because I was really good at track because I was really fast. And getting my football scholarship meant that I couldn't run track. And I was like, wait a minute, I can't run track. I can't do anything I want to do, but my mom was like, "Well, they're paying for your school, man. You're going to do what they want." And I was like, "Ah, this sucks." And so I played on the team for about 2 years, and then I said, "I gotta go. I couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't." And I was never just a jock. I wasn't just some guy who could play the sport. I also was a student, so I got some scholarships at the same time and got over. So that's how I made it through college.
So, what is the present book on which you are working on?
So I'm working on a book called, well, I don't want to give the name away. I shouldn't say. So I'm working on a book that is um, about it's science fiction. I don't ever believe that you have to write one genre. I know that many people like to write just only about one thing, like horror or detective novels, all that. I like to write a lot of different stuff. So, like I said, Teddy D was a kind of hard boiled kind of writing. Bully Nation was science fiction. Nothing Simple was my romance, and the book that I'm writing right now is science fiction, and I have another YA book that I'm writing about a high school experience about kids trying to get to college. So hey, I try to do varied stuff because again, if again, like I told you just a second ago, if I'm not enjoying it, I'm not going to do it. So I mean, I don't know if you've heard the idea that for me, as you get older, you start to think to yourself, well, why do you do something that you're not enjoying? So I think that's the most important part to me is to think, am I enjoying this? Is the writing something I want to do? And I mean, because the money is going to come if you enjoy what you do. So
So, you are saying that you did something that you love all your life.
I tried to. Yeah, I think. Well, obviously, it's been my goal to find things that I enjoy to do, and if obviously at times I haven't. I mean, sometimes you work at jobs you don't enjoy, right? And but I've tried to make those very few and rare. But because I mean, as a teacher, when I was teaching, I loved it because I got the opportunity to educate people. And the hardest part about teaching always is that it's never like an immediate effect. You can't teach someone and they go, "Oh my God, you've changed my life." That doesn't happen like that. Instead, 5 years later, they come back and go, "What you said really was true," and I'm like, "Thank you." So that but it's never in that moment that they gain something or they learn something or they value what you've taught them. I mean, of course, if you teach them math or something and you say 2 plus 2 is 4, and they go, "I always thought it was 3," and then you go, "Yeah, okay, now they can say, yeah, I can see that," but they're not going to care until it really matters. You know what I mean? So they have to um, it has to ruminate in them for a bit for them to understand the value of it. And I think that's the greatest thing about teaching, but it's also the hardest thing about teaching because you know that you're just paying it forward and you're just hoping that what you're doing matters. And I think that's kind of how I write. I mean, with the belief that I'm paying it forward. I'm writing it hoping that people in the future will see it because I don't know if everyone will appreciate what you write when you write it because only a few that's why you have critics and critics will go, nah, it's okay, and then you're like, everyone says it's okay, but the question is it amazing? And it takes time for people to understand if something is amazing.
What is the quality that you believe that is best in you and that is working for you and that is making you to wake up every morning?
Well, I think that I'm, I want to say that as a Christian, because I'm a Christian, and I think that I've always wanted to live my life Christ-like. I always wanted to try to better people and better myself. I think that it's so easy for people to finger point and blame others and say, yeah, it could have been better or this or that. And I'm like, no, I think the whole idea is to try to, I'm trying to think how to phrase it, to make things better than they were when where I am when I leave, if that makes sense. So, like, whatever I'm doing, like my writings, I'm hoping are that are left make things better for someone. And I think that if my conversation with you, I hope after this you go, now hopefully that was a good conversation. Oh, he's not a bad person, or that maybe what I'm saying has some value, and I think that unfortunately many people don't listen to each other. Like I, I think it's amazing that because I did a lot of interviews when I was, like I told you, when I was doing music magazines, and I was always surprised that people were like, "You're listening to me?" I'm like, "Of course I'm listening to you. I asked you the question. I want to know what the answer is." And but people don't always do that. They just, are just pushing it forward and missing out on what's really important to me, at least. Not, I mean, and everything is always subjective, right? So to me, that's what I believe is important, is to listen to you, talk to you, and I know that in this world that we live in, there's a lot of people who like to use each other, and this is like stepping on you to get somewhere else. I'm like, I don't. You can step on me, but the whole point would be, can't we just lift each other up? And I think that would be what I try to do. And I'm very thankful all the time. And I like I told you, I thank you so much before this even came about. I was like, thank you for just even thinking about wanting to do this with me. I think that people don't always thank people, and people don't appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate this just because you're doing it. Hope that makes sense.
So tell me the benefits and the advantages that you got because of the quality, because of the skill that you have called listening.
Mm, I think listening is kind of it's a two-edged sword. It's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time, because a lot of people don't think you're listening, so they say all sorts of dumb stuff, and think that you're not listening. And a person who, if you have like me, I've always wanted to be a conversationalist. I love to listen to people, and when I have a conversation, people are always surprised because they think that I'm going to always talk, right? In a conversation, I don't say very much. I just usually listen a lot. And I think that you benefit from listening because you gain so much knowledge. And if, like, when you ask a question, I'm listening to your question, and I'm listening to you, and I'm looking at you, right? And I'm paying attention. But if I'm not, I'm like, if I'm doing this while you're talking, or I'm not paying attention, you're like, yeah, you can see all that, right? That's body language. But if you just hear what's being said, it really is significant. And for me, I think that listening, I've always, I don't have children or anything, but as a teacher, I've had, hundreds of children. And I think I've become like, I've had like the mom ears, where you and I could be talking and I could hear a conversation next to us, and I'd be like, I'm listening to you, but I'm also listening to that, trying to figure out what's about to happen. And so it's I think listening is, again, it's a curse and a gift. If you really listen, you can hear what's being said and also understand what's being said, but simultaneously, it's a curse because you are listening and you are hearing exactly what's being said, and what that really is being, what they really are saying. If that makes sense. If that makes sense.
So you're a podcaster, you're an author, you're a cyclist, you're a rugby player, you're a footballer, and you're a teacher. So you said six, so five to six. So from all these different fields, what? So you are a mixture of all these things.
Yeah, I'm a Renaissance man. That's my favorite phrase ever. When I was a kid, I always wanted to be a Renaissance man. A poet warrior, or a philosopher king. I love that. I mean, I've always wanted that. I mean, to be honest, when I was really young, one of my favorite things my teacher asked me was, when you when when you envision your future, if they ever erect a statue to you, what would that statue say, right? Or where would it be? And I said, and I remember I must have been like 8 or 9 years old, and I said, I want my statue to be in a park so all the kids can see it, and on it to say, Mark Sneed was a Renaissance man. And my teacher was like, do you even know what that means? And I was like, I wouldn't have said it if I didn't. And that's how I am.
So at last, do you have anything to say about yourself and any good message to the world who watches this video from anywhere on this planet?
Well, I think that all I would say is what I said, over and over to you just throughout this is that just be. I'm trying to be a good person. I hope that what I say has some significance and some resonance that follows me after I uh, shake this mortal coil. And but I think that um, I just want to be a good person, and I know that people say that, but don't really know what. I mean, it sounds good. I really want to, in the end, hopefully, be a voice that people remember as being important for Black male voices, if that makes sense, and especially here in America.
So one last question: what made you yourself to make the things that done? I mean, not every time that you wanted will happen.
Yeah.
Not what you love is not going to happen. So how you
Mhm.
made the things possible?
Well, I mean, I don't think I can answer that specifically, other than to keep trying. You know, I'm a hard worker. I keep working. I know that odds are always against me. I mean, they always have been against me, but to keep trying. The more you try, the more I want to remember the quote. I think the quote is, "The harder you work, the luckier you are," and I kind of believe that. So I think that I'm going to continue to work hard and try to become more and more lucky as I keep working harder and harder.
So at last, have you seen any videos of mine on YouTube or uh,
I
on
have,
podcast? Have
of
you?
course,
Yeah.
dude. I'm a researcher. I definitely pay attention. So yeah, I definitely was looking at them, and I was like, the thing that was interesting to me is because you're in India. I was so surprised to see that you talked to a bunch of people from England. I was like, wow, that's really cool. And I was like, I'm American, so I'm like, okay, this is gonna be different because I was like wondering if I was supposed to have like a monocle and so I go, well, hello there, chap, but because I don't have all that. But I definitely looked at your stuff because I don't just want to be on something I don't know anything about. So yeah. So thank you. I definitely appreciate it. And your I was gonna say your hair's grown out. It's bigger than it usually is. I was gonna say that because I saw that in the videos. I was like, oh, okay. Because when I saw you, I was like, what? Okay, that's cool.
So what you felt when you saw me talking with different people?
I mean, like I said, it it's interesting because it reminds me of my podcast, except that my podcast is me and my friend in Chicago. So we do this by like on the phone, right? And it's very similar where it's friendly, it's conversational, and it's enjoyable. And I'm talking about you. Yours is that's what I'm talking about. Yours is friendly, conversational, and informative, which is really good.
So yeah, thank you so much, sir.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir, for giving me your valuable time and telling completely about yourself. Directly or indirectly, you are going to be motivation and inspiration for a lot of people who are unable to do what they wanted in their life. For sure, after listening to you and watching you and listening to your words are valuable and your life experience is valuable. Maybe who watches from this video from Germany, who listens this podcast from Germany, it will be very, very inspiring and motivational, and they may do something that they cannot do after listening to you.
Well, thank you. And I mean, I think that's what I like about. I was going to say that's what I should have said is that's what I liked about your videos that I saw. That they are that yours are very very inspirational too, and I like that. I mean, I think that we have to try to lift each other up. I said that earlier, and I really do believe in that. I don't, it's not just some I don't know some like catchphrase or something. I really think it's important that we try to help each other because this world is going to be us. And if we don't make some decisions, we're just going to eat each other up and not in a good way. So, so thank you so much. Have a good day.
So at last,
Oh, I'm
in
sorry.
your style, at last in your style, your own words, any words which are impactful which are powerful because you are a sportsman, right? So obviously your words will be very, very powerful. So any words that will affect the brains of the people who watches, who listens to this.
Hmm. I, it's hard. It's sort of like it's hard to on demand to come up with something like big important right now. I think that just be kind to each other, right? Be kind to each other and try to understand everyone's situation. I think that everyone's in a struggle. Everyone's in some kind of battle. I mean, we visible and invisible, right? And we just got to understand that. And you know, a lot of the hate that I see comes from the hate from themselves. And I think that we have to sometimes be aware of that and take that into consideration. It doesn't mean that we allow it or we accept it, but we just it helps us um, to not just lash out all the time. Hopefully that helps. Thanks
So
again.
can I
Yes, sir.
put this video on my YouTube channel, on social media, on internet, on my podcast with your permission?
What am I supposed to say? We've talked for like 18 hours. Of course.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. Keep going, keep doing what you love, and keep inspiring.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Take care.